Welcome back to Inside the Philippines, the channel where we sit with the men who came here chasing something. Love, a fresh start, a place to finally breathe. And we listen to what it actually cost them. Tonight's man is called Rainer. He's 54 years old, and for 30 years he was a coal miner in the west of Germany, in a place called the Ruhr Valley, a kilometer underground, in the dark, in the heat, with men who trusted each other with their lives. That was his whole world. And then that world closed down, the way the mines all did. And Rainer came up into the daylight with a pension, some savings, and no idea who he was supposed to be anymore. He'll tell you himself. He was never a gambler, never a fool with money, careful to the bone, which is what makes what happened to him so hard to sit with. Because somewhere between that quiet flat in Germany and a loud, bright street in Angeles City, Rainer met someone. And what happened after that is the reason he agreed to talk to us at all. He said, if it stops even one man from doing what he did, it's worth the embarrassment. I'm not going to tell you how it ends. I'm not going to tell you what it cost him, or what he found out, or where he's sitting right now as he tells us this. That's his to give you. What I'll say is, this one's going to stick with you. Because Rainer isn't bitter, and that's the part that gets you. He's just honest. Here's his story, in his own words. The pit was called Prosper Haniel, Bottrop, the last hard coal mine in all of Germany, and I was there the day they shut it. December 2018. They handed the top brass a lump of coal on a little cushion, like it was a jewel, and the cameras came, and everyone made speeches. And then it was over. 150 years of digging, done. 30 of those years were mine. I don't know how to explain the mine to someone who's never been down. It's hot. People don't expect that. You go down and it's warm. And the deeper you go, the warmer it gets, and you're black to the elbows within the hour. Loud, too. Machines that'd take your hearing if you let them. But here's the thing about it. Down there, the man next to you, you don't ask questions. He watches the roof for you. You watch it for him. If he says move, you move. You don't stop to think, is he lying to me? Has he got a reason to want me dead? He's your mate. You trust him, because trusting him is the only way either of you comes back up. 30 years of that. It gets into you. It becomes how you think a man is supposed to be. And then they close the pit, and they send you home with a good pension. Nap shaft, the miner's fund, decent money, I'll not complain, and a severance on top. And you sit in your flat in Bottrop, and you realize the thing you were good at doesn't exist anymore. Nobody needs a man who reads a roof. My wife had gone years before. No children. My sister's boy, my nephew, he came round sometimes, and I was grateful for it. But the flat was quiet. I'm not a man for big words. But I'll tell you, I once spent 4 days without saying anything out loud to another person. 4 days. I only noticed because I said good morning to the woman at the bakery, and my own voice sounded strange to me, like a tool you hadn't picked up in a while. That's the state I was in when I did the stupid thing with the money. Before the Philippines, before any of it. A fella I'd worked with, good man, or I thought so. He had this scheme. Solar panels, shipping containers. You lease them out, guaranteed return, he said. Guaranteed. And I trusted him the way you trust a man underground, because that's the only way I knew how to trust anybody. 18 months, gone, 60,000 euros, near enough. And I want to be clear about something, because it matters for the rest of what I'm going to tell you. It wasn't the money that kept me up at night. I still had enough. I'd clawed back to about 90,000 saved, plus the pension coming in every month. I was, on paper, comfortable. It was the shame. That's what did it. 50-some years old, never gambled a cent in my life, always the careful one. And I'd handed it over because a man looked me in the eye, and I couldn't imagine he'd lie. I felt like an idiot, and there was nobody in the flat to tell me I wasn't one. So there I am, comfortable and hollow, money in the bank and nobody to spend an evening with. And I want you to understand that, really understand it, before I tell you the rest. Because if you don't understand how empty a man can get, then none of what I did next is going to make any sense to you. It didn't to me either at first. My nephew's the one who put the idea in my head. Sat on my sofa one evening with his phone, showing me these videos. Warm all year round, he said. Everyone speaks English. Cheap. Catholic country, uncle. They've got proper family values there. Not like, and he said something about Thailand. I don't remember what. I wasn't listening for the beaches. I want to be honest about that. I wasn't a man dreaming of white sand. It was the faces in those little videos, people looking right at the camera, smiling like they meant it. I don't know. Something about that got in under my ribs and stayed there. I flew out of Dusseldorf in November, told nobody except my nephew. What was I going to say to the neighbors? Off to the Philippines, on my own, at my age? They'd have thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. A little. Nearly a full day of flying. Frankfurt, then Doha, then Manila, and by the time we came down over the city it was dark, and the whole thing was just lights. Thousands of them, going on forever. Then a smaller plane up to Clark. And when they opened the doors of that plane, that's the first thing I remember properly. The air. It came in like something solid. Warm and wet, heavy, smelled of jet fuel and something green underneath. In Bottrop, in November, your breath smokes in front of your face. Here I was, sweating through my shirt before I'd found the taxi. The drive to Angeles City. I couldn't tell you much. Tired, dark. But I remember the tricycles. These little motorbikes with a sidecar welded on, buzzing everywhere like wasps, 3-4 people crammed in, and the sari-sari stores, little shops built into the front of houses, a bit of light, and a woman sitting behind a counter selling single cigarettes and sachets of shampoo. Everything open, everything awake. Then Fields Avenue. I want to be honest with you about those first couple of nights, because it's not the story people expect. I didn't walk in there like some big man. I was frightened. That's the truth of it. It's loud. God, it's loud. Bar after bar, the music thumping out of each one. Different songs all fighting each other. And lights, pink and blue, and girls outside every door calling out. Hello, sir. Come in, sir. Where you from, handsome? And I'm a coal miner from Bottrop. I don't get called handsome. I got called worse things underground. And those were my friends. Men my age everywhere. Older. Big red faces, San Miguel in hand, girls half their age hanging off them. And I looked at them, and something in me went cold. Is that me now? Is that what I've become? One of these. First night I lasted maybe an hour. Bought one beer, San Miguel Pale Pilsen, drank it too fast, and went back to my hotel and lay under the aircon, feeling like a fool. 12,000 kilometers to sit in a bar and feel worse than I did at home. Second night, same. Walked the length of it and back, and didn't go in anywhere. I nearly changed my flight. I did. Sat there with my phone, looking at whether I could move it up, go home early, tell the nephew it wasn't for me. But you don't come all that way to run after 2 nights. My father wouldn't have. You commit to a thing, you see it through. That's the mine in me. So the third night I told myself, one bar, one proper drink, sit down like a man. And if it's still rubbish, then fine. You go home and you never speak of it again. The bar I picked it because it was quieter than the rest. That's all. Down the far end, smaller. The music not so loud you couldn't think. I went in, sat at the end of the counter where I could put my back to something, and ordered a red horse because a fella at the hotel said it was the strong one, and that's where Girlie was. She wasn't one of the ones dancing. She was just sitting a couple of stools down, in jeans, not the little outfits the others wore, and she had a plate of something in front of her. Sisig, I know now. Chopped up pork, sizzling, smelled of vinegar and onions and I don't know what. She saw me looking at the plate, not at her, at the food, and she laughed and pushed it toward me. "You want," she said. "You look scared, mister. It's only pig face. Won't bite? You already did that part." And one laughed. First time I'd laughed in, I couldn't tell you how long. Weeks, months. Her English was good. Better than mine, and I told her so. And she said something back about Germans, and I made some flat little joke, the kind that goes over most people's heads, dry. And she got it. She actually got it. Laughed properly. Not the fake laugh you hear all up and down that street. A real one. She asked me what I did. I said I was retired. She asked from what. And when I said I was a miner, coal, underground, 30 years. Most people's eyes go somewhere else when you say that. Hers didn't. She asked what it was like down there. Was it dark? Was it hot? Weren't you scared? Nobody had asked me that in years. My own wife never asked me that in 20 years of marriage. This girl in a bar in Angeles City did. Her name was Girlie. That's a real name here, or a nickname that sticks from when they're small. Half the women you meet are Girlie, or Baby, or Honey Grace. She was 29. From Samar, one of the islands down in the Visayas. Poor part of the country, she said. Real province. She'd come up to Luzon for work, sent money home. That's all she said about it that night, just sent money home. Like it was the most normal thing in the world, which I'd learn. Here it is. I paid her bar fine that night. I should explain what that is, for anyone who doesn't know, because I didn't. You pay the bar a fee. Hers was 3,000, about 48 euros, and the girl can leave with you. And I know how that sounds. I know exactly how it sounds. But we didn't. It wasn't that. I want you to believe that, and I know you might not. We went and got food. There was a place still open, and we sat, and she ordered for me, because I didn't know anything, and we talked until it got light. About the mine, about Samar, about her mother, about my flat in Bottrop and how quiet it was. I paid the P3,000 so she'd sit and eat sisig with a lonely German for a few hours. That was the whole of it that first night. And when I walked back to the hotel, the sun was coming up over all those shut-up bars, roosters going somewhere behind the buildings, and I felt, I don't know how to say it, I felt like a person again. That's the closest I can get. And I thought, this one's different. She asked about the mine. I actually thought that. Those words. The 3 weeks I had, I ended up spending nearly all of them with Girlie. Not in the bar. That's the thing I keep coming back to. After that first night, she didn't want me in the bar at all. She'd meet me in the daytime. She took me around Angeles like a normal person. We went to the SM Mall out there, the big one, air-conditioned so cold it was a shock after the street, and she walked me through it, not to buy her things, but because she liked the cold, and she liked showing me where the good Lechon was in the food court. She'd order for me. always ordered for me. Sinigang, this sour soup, tamarind. She said it was good for the heat, and she was right, it was. She laughed at how I sweated. Germans aren't built for this, she said. You're built for the cold and the dark. And I said, aye, that's about right. That's exactly what they built us for. She never once asked me for money in those 3 weeks. I want that on the record. Not once. If anything, it went the other way. One time I tried to give her a bit extra. I don't know, a few thousand pesos. Buy yourself something. And she pushed my hand back. Rainer, no. Save it. You're a visitor. You don't have to. And I sat there with the notes in my hand, feeling like I'd insulted her. That did something to me, that moment. Because every warning my nephew's YouTube videos had drummed into me was, they'll bleed you dry. And here was this woman shoving my money back across the table, telling me to keep it. I think about that a lot now. The refusing. It was the most convincing thing she ever did, and it didn't cost her a single peso. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's the word you'll want to know. Cano. That's what they call us out there. Comes from Americano. From the old air base days, Clark was an American base. And now, it just means the white man, the foreigner. And a cano, in that town, means money. Walking money. Everybody knows the cano has a pension. Everybody knows the cano's little pension goes further out here than a whole family earns in a year. I didn't understand that yet. I thought I was just Rainer. To that whole street I was a cano, a walking envelope. And the strange thing is, Girlie was the one person who didn't treat me like one. So, I decided she was the real thing. On that alone. She didn't grab, so she must be honest. That was my whole reasoning. A man who spent 30 years reading rock. And that was the depth of my thinking. By the end of the 3 weeks, I didn't want to go home. Home was the quiet flat. Here I had someone who ordered my soup and asked about the mine, and laughed at the dry stuff nobody in Bottrop laughed at anymore. The night before my flight, we sat outside a little place, San Miguel for me. She had a Coke, and I said something like, I didn't want this to just stop. And she got quiet, and then she said, then don't let it stop. Simple as that. Then don't let it stop, Rainer. So we didn't. I flew home, and we carried on. Every single day. Messenger, that's what everyone uses there, Facebook Messenger, and Viber for the calls. Good morning message before I'd even had my coffee. Good morning, Po, with a little sun. Po, that's a respect thing they add, Opo. And Po, it softens everything they say. Good night at the end. She'd video call and prop the phone up while she cooked and just talk to me. Show me the rain coming down on some tin roof. The neighbors karaoke going. Always karaoke. Someone always murdering a Whitney Houston song somewhere. And I'd sit in Bottrop with my coffee going cold, watching a rainstorm 12,000 kilometers away, and I was happier than I'd been in years. That's not nothing. Whatever else this is, that part was real for me. After about 6 weeks of that, she brought up leaving the bar. Careful. Didn't push. She hated it there, she said. Hated the men. Hated what they thought she was. She only did it for the family back in Samar. If she could just stop, get a small place, maybe study again. But the bar was the money, so. And I heard myself say, well, how much is the bar? She said around 25,000 a month is what she cleared. That's, I did it in my head, about 400 euros. 400 euros a month, and this woman was sitting in that place letting men look at her. 400 euros. That was nothing to me. That was less than I spent on rubbish I didn't need. And I could take her out of there. I could be the one that got her out. You have to understand what that did for me. It wasn't about the 400 euros. It was that somebody needed me again. After the mine, after the flat, after 4 days of not speaking to a soul, somebody needed me, and it was in my power to do it. And it barely cost me anything. So, I started sending it. P25,000 a month, about $400, through Gcash, which is the phone money thing everyone uses, takes about 30 seconds. And she left the bar, sent me a photo the day she quit, her out on the street with her bag, grinning, thumbs up. Thank you, Rainer. God is good. God brought you to me. She said that a lot. And she meant it, I think. That's the part people who haven't been there don't get. It wasn't a line she read off a script. Out there, God is in everything. Real Catholic country. The whole family goes to Mass. There's a rosary hanging off every jeepney mirror. When she said God brought me to her, she believed it. And so, God help me, did I? 400 euros a month to be somebody's blessing. I'd have paid more. That was the trap, if you want to call it that. Not that it was expensive, that it was cheap. Cheap enough that every yes felt like nothing. And then she said, one day, almost shy, Rainer, would it be okay sometime if you talked to my mama? She wants to thank you. And I said, of course. Of course I'll talk to your mama. Of course I will. The mother was the first. That's how it starts, if you want to know how it starts. Not with the woman, with the mother. Girlie propped the phone up one Sunday, and there was Nane, that's mother, Nane. This small woman with a face like a walnut, sitting in front of a wall with a big framed picture of the Sacred Heart on it, red lamp underneath, the whole thing, and she took my hand through the phone, sort of held her own hands together at me, and she thanked me. Salamat po, over and over, thanked me for helping her daughter, said I was an answer to prayer, said they pray for me at Mass, the whole family, praying for a coal miner from Bottrop. And I'll be honest with you, that got me worse than anything Girlie ever said, because I believed the mother. You can fake a lot of things, but that old woman with her rosary, I still don't think that was an act. One, think she really did thank God for me. That's what makes this whole thing so hard to lay out clean for you. It wasn't all lies. That's the part that still does my head in. So now, I'm not just Girlie's. Whatever I was. Boyfriend, at my age, felt like a stupid word. But that's what it was. Now, I'm part of the family. And in the Philippines, that means something completely different than it means in Germany. There's a thing they have out there, and once you understand it, a lot of this makes more sense. Utang na loob. It means, roughly, debt of gratitude. If someone helps you, you owe them, and it goes deep, deeper than money. It's a whole. It's how the society holds together. And family comes first, always, before everything. The eldest kids especially carry the whole load. Girlie was the eldest daughter. So supporting Nane, supporting the younger ones, that wasn't her being greedy. That was just what a good daughter does out there. Millions of them go work abroad. Saudi, Hong Kong, on ships, cleaning other people's houses, and send every peso home. That's normal. That's honorable even. And me? Well, I was just another version of that, wasn't I? The foreigner is basically a walking overseas worker as far as the family's concerned. Another source. I didn't see it in those terms then. I saw a family that loved each other and had nothing, and I had more than enough, and it seemed almost obscene not to help. So the requests started. And here's the thing I need you to understand. None of them were mad. Not one of them, on its own, was mad. First one was the mother's medicine, diabetes. She needed her maintenance meds, insulin and the rest, from the mercury drug. And it was about $4,000 a month. 60-odd euros. 60 euros, so an old woman doesn't lose her feet. What kind of man says no to that? I didn't even think about it. Added it on. Then the youngest brother. Bright kid, apparently, wanted to study. But the tuition, around 35,000 a semester, call it 550 euros. And there was no way the family could find that. And I thought about my own life. 30 years underground because there was never any other road offered to me. Nobody paid for me to be anything else. And here's a kid who could actually go and be something. 500 euros so he doesn't end up down a hole like me. Easy. Yes. Send it. You see how it goes? Every single one of them. If you'd been sitting where I was sitting, you'd have said yes too. Don't tell me you wouldn't. Medicine for the mother. School for the boy. These aren't luxuries. These are the things a decent man helps with if he can. Then came the store. Girlie'd been saying she wanted to stand on her own, not just take from me. And could she maybe start a little sorry store? You've seen them? The little shop out the front of the house sells cigarettes and Lucky Me noodles and shampoo in little sachets and Coke in the plastic bags. Every neighborhood has 10 of them. And it made sense. It fit everything I already believed about her. She didn't want to just take. She wanted to build something. That was the whole reason I trusted her, remember? So a store that'd give her an income, get her off my P25,000 a month even, that sounded like the responsible thing. That sounded like exactly what I'd want. She said to do it properly, stock it right, get the shelving and a second-hand ref for the cold drinks and the starting inventory, it'd be about 180,000. That's roughly $12,900. Now that one I did feel. That wasn't 60 euros. That was nearly 3,000, real money, out of the savings I'd clawed back together after the solar business burned me. And I sat on it for a couple of days. I did. I want you to know I wasn't completely gone yet. Some part of the careful man was still in there, going, "That's a lot, Rainer. That's a lot." But I talked myself round. I told myself, this isn't like the solar thing. The solar thing was a stranger in a suit selling me a fantasy. This is a real shop, real shelves, a real woman I've met. I've eaten with her mother. I can see this one. And an investment in her is an investment in us. And if we're going to have a life together, then her having her own income is a good thing, isn't it? That's not throwing money away. That's building. So I sent the P180,000. And she sent photos. Her outside the little store, painted blue, a hand-lettered sign, bags of chips clipped up in the doorway, her grinning, thumbs up. That same thumbs up from the day she left the bar. Nanay standing next to her. Salamat po, Rainer. God is good. I had that photo as my phone background for about a year. A blue sari-sari store on Samar I'd never stood in front of. I used to look at it and feel like I'd done something with my life. And around then, she bought, I bought a habal motorbike, the kind they use as a taxi in the province, P75,000, about $200, for the brother to get to school, and he could earn a bit ferrying people on the side. Made sense. Everything made sense. There was one small thing. I'll mention it because I promised myself I'd be honest. When I asked, a couple of months on, how the store was doing, whether it was turning a profit yet, she went a bit vague. Sorry stores don't make much. Rainer, you know, small margins, and the neighbors buy on credit and don't pay. Which is true, by the way. That is genuinely how they work out there. But I noticed she never gave me a number. Not once, I noticed, and I let it go. Told myself it was rude to interrogate a woman about her little shop like some auditor. Told myself I trusted her. That was the thing I kept doing. I kept choosing to trust her over and over and calling it love, when really I was just choosing not to look. The house was Girlie's idea, but she made it feel like mine. She was clever like that. She never quite asked for the big things. She'd talk around them until you got there yourself and thought you'd come up with it. We'd been going more than a year by then, 2 more trips out. I'd been to Samar by this point. I'll come back to that. And she started talking about the future. Our future. When you retire properly, Rainer, when you come and live here, where will we stay? We can't stay with Nane forever. And that's true. That's a fair thing for a woman to think about. Where are we going to live? The family had land, a little patch on Samar. Been in the family, her Lolo's, her grandfather's. You can build on it. And she painted me this picture. A little house, concrete, not a bahay kubo, not a bamboo hut. A proper poured concrete house that stands up to the typhoons, with a room for us and a bit of a garden. And I could sit out in the evening with a San Miguel and watch the rain come in off the sea. After 30 years underground, sitting in the light watching the rain, you can see how that gets into a man like me. Now, here's where I have to tell you the thing that everybody watching is already shouting at their screen. I knew a foreigner can't own land in the Philippines. I'd read it. It's not a secret. It's the first thing that comes up. A foreigner cannot own land there. Full stop. You can own a condo unit in a building, up to a point, but land, never. The house would be on her family's land, in her name, her family's name, and legally, I would own exactly nothing. I knew that. And I sent the money anyway, because I told myself, it's not an investment, Rainer. Don't think of it like the solar panels. This isn't about owning anything. This is a home for us. You don't own your marriage either, do you? You don't have a deed to it. I actually thought things like that. I dressed it up so nicely. A man doesn't build a home to own it. He builds it to live in it. Beautiful. Complete rubbish, but beautiful. The house was going to cost, she said, around $2 million to build properly. That's about $32,000. But, and this is how it's done, this is the clever bit, she didn't ask for $32,000. Nobody asks for the whole thing. She asked for $400,000 to start. To get the lot cleared, the foundation poured. The first delivery of hollow blocks and cement and rebar. About $400 to begin. And that $400,000, I didn't have it sitting spare. This is the part that matters. The store, the bike, the monthly, the medicine, the tuition. It had all been chipping away for over a year. I was still comfortable on paper, but the savings weren't $90,000 anymore. So, to send the $400,000 and keep everything else running, I took money against my pension. A pension advance, and then, a bit later, a consumer loan on top, from the bank. The kind of thing I'd have laughed at a younger man for taking. Me, the careful one. The man who never gambled a pfennig, taking out loans to pour a foundation on an island I'd been to twice, on land I could never own, in a country on the other side of the world. I didn't tell my nephew that part. One was too ashamed. He knew about Girlie, he was happy for me even, but I never told him I was borrowing. Some things you keep even from the people who'd catch you. And they poured it. I'll give them that. They actually poured a foundation. She sent photos. The cleared lot, red earth, palm trees behind, then men in flip-flops, and no shirts mixing concrete by hand. And then this gray slab sitting there in the sun with rebar sticking up out of it like fingers, waiting for walls. That slab. I must have looked at that photo 100 times. That was going to be my house, that gray rectangle, my retirement, my watching the rain. And then, nothing. The walls didn't come. There was always a reason. Rainy season. Can't pour in the rain. Then the price of cement went up. Everything's more expensive now, Rainer. Then the cousin who was managing the build, because, of course, a cousin was managing it, the cousin had a problem. Some of the money got, I don't know, spent on something urgent, and they'd need a bit more to get back on track. Always a bit more. Never the walls. Same time as all this, the emergency came. There's always an emergency eventually, and I've since learned that from every other poor bastard this has happened to. But I didn't know it then. Nane collapsed. Rushed to hospital in Tacloban. Something with the heart, or the diabetes, or both. The story shifted a bit, depending on when you asked. And they needed 250,000, about $4,000, and they needed it that day, that hour, or she wouldn't get treated. Because out there, the hospital wants to see the money before they'll do much. That part's true, by the way. Public health care, there is a nightmare. People really do have to pay up front. People really do die over a bill. So, was it real? I still don't know. That's the honest answer. It might have been completely real. Nane was a genuinely sick old woman. Or it might have been the store money and the house money running out and needing a fresh reason. Or, and this is the thing I've landed on, it might have been both. A real emergency, seized on. Real desperation isn't the same as a clean lie. Poverty makes people do things that look like scams and feel like survival. I sent the P250,000. Course I did. What was I going to do? Sit in Bottrop and let the old woman die to protect my money? The woman who prayed for me at Mass? And I sat there afterward, in the flat, with the loan paperwork on the table, and the good morning message came through the next day like nothing had happened. Good morning, Poe, with the little sun. And I looked at it for a long time, because the sums had stopped adding up. The store never showed a peso. The house was a slab with weeds growing through it. The tuition kept coming every semester, but there was never any talk of grades, of a diploma, of the boy actually being at any school I could name. And the nights, I'd not said this yet, the nights she was just gone. Phone off. All day sometimes. And then back, breezy, no real explanation. Signal's bad here, Rainer. Brownout. I told myself brownout. They do have brownouts. But something in me had gone quiet. Not angry, quiet. The way it goes quiet underground when you hear the roof make a sound it shouldn't make, and every man on the shift stops, and nobody says anything, and you just listen. I was listening now. I just wasn't ready yet to admit what I was hearing. It wasn't one moment. I want to be clear about that, because people always want the one moment, the text you weren't meant to see, the door you opened. It wasn't like that for me. It was more like water getting into a boot. You don't notice the exact second. You just realize at some point that your foot's been wet for a while. The sums were the start of it. I'm a careful man, I told you that. And even when I was being a fool about the money, I still, somewhere in the back of my head, kept the numbers. And one gray afternoon in Bottrop, rain coming down the window, I actually sat and wrote it all out on a bit of paper, like a proper Bergman, like I was costing out a job. The monthly, the medicine, the tuition, every semester, on and on. The store, 180,000, the bike, the house, the fee 400,000 that became more, then more. The emergency, 250,000, and all the little ones in between, the pasalubong, the fiesta, the this, the that. I added it up. It was north of $48,000, nearly 50,000 euros, over about 18 months, and on top of my savings being gone, I had the pension advance and 2 bank loans running, and I was paying those back every month out of a pension that was supposed to be my whole living. I looked at that number, and I felt sick. Not because it was a fortune to some men. because of what it was. It was the solar panels again. It was the exact same thing again. A man had come to me, well, a woman this time, and looked me in the eye, and I'd handed it all over on trust, and here I was a second time, older, and I'd learned nothing. Nothing. That was the part that made me want to be sick. Not her. Me. And once I let myself look at the money honestly, everything else I'd been not looking at came up with it. The store that never once, in over a year, produced a single peso or a single photograph of a customer. The brother who'd apparently been at university for 3 semesters, and there was never a grade, never a campus, never a name of a school I could have typed into Google. The house that was a slab. Still a slab. I'd paid for walls twice over by now, and it was still just that gray rectangle with the weeds and the rebar going rusty in the rain. And the nights she was gone, which I'd called brownouts. I started, God help me, doing the thing you do. I'd stay up because of the time difference, 7 hours, and I'd watch to see when she was online on Messenger. Green dot. Active now. And she'd be active now at 2 in the morning, her time. 3, when she'd told me she was asleep, when she wasn't answering me. Active now. Talking to someone. Not me. I never said anything. That's the German in me, or the minor, or just the coward. I don't know. You don't accuse. You watch the roof and you wait. And then it wasn't me who found it out. That's the thing. After all that watching, I didn't crack it myself. It came to me. There was a cousin. Girlie had a cousin, Marilou, younger. I'd met her on the video calls a few times, hovering in the background, and once or twice she'd added me on Facebook and sent a nice message. Salamat kuya. Thank you, older brother. That sort of thing. And one night, a message comes in from Marilou. Long one. She'd clearly sat and worked up the nerve. She said she was sorry. She said she couldn't watch it anymore, that I was a kind man, a good man, and it wasn't right. And then she told me. There was another one, an Australian, older fella from Queensland, been sending money to that same house for about as long as I had. He thought the store was his. He thought the house was going to be his house. He thought Girlie was his. He called her by a different name, actually. A nickname he'd given her. And there might have been a third, further back. Marilou wasn't sure. Some German or Austrian before me who'd stopped sending and just vanished from the story. The house I'd been building. The Australian had been building it too. The same slab. The same photos, probably. Sent to both of us. Thumbs up. Salamat. God is good. God is good to a lot of people, it turns out. I read Marilou's message about 4 times. And here's the strange thing, and I've thought about why. I wasn't surprised. That's what got me. I'd known. Some part of me down in the dark had known for months and had just been waiting for someone to come and say it out loud so I couldn't pretend anymore. The roof had been talking to me the whole time. Marilou just finally said the word collapse. I didn't rage. I didn't type her a screen of abuse, Girlie, I mean. People expect that, and I understand why, but it's not what happened. I did the only thing that felt like mine to do. I stopped the money. That's all. Next day, the day the monthly was due, I just didn't send it. Didn't announce it. Didn't accuse. Just closed the tap and waited. The way you seal off a bad section and wait to see what the mine does. And the mine told me everything. Because for 2 days, there was worry. Rainer? Rainer, are you okay? Is there problem? The good morning suns, more of them than usual. Then when the money still didn't come, the worry cooled. And within a week, she was gone. Just gone. The calls stopped. The good mornings stopped. No fight, no tears, no begging. When the money stopped, she stopped. That was my answer. That was the cleanest answer I ever got out of the whole thing, and she never said a single word to give it to me. And even then, this is the part one can't make simple for you, and I've stopped trying. Even then, I don't think it was all a lie. I think she did, in her way, feel something for the daft old German who asked about nothing and gave everything. I think the mother's prayers were real. I think the family was really poor, and really did need help, and really was grateful. And I think all of that lived right alongside the Australian and the nickname and the store that never was. Both things. True at the same time. That's the Philippines. Or that's people. Or that's just what desperation does. It wears the face of love because it has to. But the tap was off now. And in the quiet after, that same quiet as the flat, as the 4 days without speaking, I was right back in it. I finally had to sit and count what it had actually cost me. Not just the money, all of it. So, what did it cost me? Let me lay it out proper, because that's what you came for, and because I promised myself if I was going to do this, I'd not dress it up. Money first, because money's the easiest to count. About $48,000 sent over the 18 months. That's savings. The savings I'd bled and scraped to build back after the solar business, gone a second time. And then the debt, which is the part that's got me by the throat now. The pension advance and the 2 bank loans. I'm paying back around $600 a month on those. 600 euros, out of a pension of not quite $1,600. You do that sum. Better than a third of everything I have to live on every month. Going to pay off a house I'll never see. A store that never sold a bag of crisps. A life that never existed. That's the drowning in debt part, if you saw the title. That's not a figure of speech. 54 years old, and I'm rationing the heating in a Bottrop winter because of a slab of concrete on Samar. But if it was only money, I don't think I'd have agreed to sit here and tell you all this. Money you can, I don't know, you can get your head round money. It's the other things. The time. Nearly 2 years where I was, in my own head. A man with a future. A woman. A house coming. A family that needed me. A reason to get up. And none of it was real, or not real the way I thought. And I can't get those 2 years back. At my age, 2 years is not nothing. And the nephew. That's the one that hurts the most. And I'll tell you why. When it all came apart, he found out. I finally told him. And he blamed himself. Because he'd shown me the videos. He sat in my kitchen, this grown lad now, and he had tears in his eyes saying it was his fault. He'd put the idea in my head. And I had to take him by the shoulders and tell him no. No, son. You showed me some videos. I'm the one who sent the money. I'm the one who signed the loans. A man is responsible for his own hands. That's the one thing 30 years underground did teach me properly, and I'd somehow forgotten it for 2 years. You are responsible for your own hands. We're all right now, him and me. That's the one thing I pulled out of the fire. But there was a stretch there where I nearly lost him too. Over shame. Over not being able to look him in the eye. And that would have been the real bankruptcy, not the euros. Him. People want me to hate her. When I tell this in the pub, that's what they want. The evil bar girl who destroyed the German. And I understand it. It's a cleaner story. But I won't give it to you because it isn't true. And I've had a long time now to sit with what is. Was she running me? Yes. There was an Australian. There was a nickname. The store was never a store. Those are facts, and I'm not soft enough anymore to pretend otherwise. But was every bit of it cold? Was there nothing there? No, I don't believe that either. I think a poor girl from Samar, eldest daughter, whole family on her back, did what she'd learned to do to survive, which out there they call discarte, hustle, getting by. And I think somewhere inside that she also, in her way, was fond of the daft old miner who asked her about nothing and gave her everything. Both. At once. The mother's prayers were real. The poverty was real. And it was all also a way of getting my money. That's not a contradiction over there. That's just Tuesday. The mistake was never that she was a monster. The mistake was mine, and it was a simple one, and it's the whole reason I'm talking to you. I mistook being needed for being loved. That's it. That's the whole thing. After the mine closed, I wasn't a man anymore. I was just a bloke in a flat. Nobody needed me for anything. And then, here's a family 12,000 kilometers away, and every week they needed me, and every euro I sent, I felt like somebody again. That feeling, that's what she was really selling. And that's what I was really buying. And it had almost nothing to do with her. She just found the hole the mine left, and she filled it with Gcash requests. Underground, you've got a creed. The man next to you carries his end, and you carry yours, and you check. You always check. Because if he's not pulling his weight, the roof comes down on both of you. 30 years I lived by that. And then I came up top, and I found somebody who needed me. And I was so glad to be needed that I never once checked whether anyone was carrying my end. I just kept carrying and calling it love. So here's what I'd say to you. If you're a certain kind of man watching this, a man on his own, a man who used to be needed and isn't anymore, because that man is the mark, not the fool, not the desperate, the good, steady, lonely man who's got a bit put by and nobody to be needed by. That's who this happens to. That's who it's built for. Set the line before the warmth, not after. Once the warmth is in, you'll not hold any line. I promise you, I couldn't. Decide what you'll give before you ever feel a thing. And then don't move it, no matter whose mother is praying for you. And never ever borrow. If you're reaching past what you've got, if you're signing a paper at a bank to keep a thing going 12,000 kilometers away, stop. That's not love making you do that. That's the drowning. Real love doesn't need you to take out a second loan by Friday. And your carefulness, if you're a careful man, the way I was, don't think it leaves you because you got lonely. It doesn't leave. It just goes quiet, sits in the back, keeps telling you the truth in a small voice while you turn the music up. Listen to the small voice. It's the same one that reads the roof. It was right the whole time. I just didn't want to hear it. That's my story. That's where the money went. I've a slab of concrete on an island I'll never visit, and a woman I still, God help me, don't entirely hate. That's all I've got. And that's Rayner. He came to us plain-spoken, and he leaves it the same way. And I don't think there's much I can add to a man who's counted his own losses that honestly in front of you. But I'll say this much, on our way out. The trap that caught Rayner wasn't a woman on Fields Avenue. It was the silence in that flat after the whistle blew, the years when nobody needed him. That's the thing to watch, if you recognized a bit of yourself in him tonight. The loneliness comes first. The bad decision just fills the space it leaves. So if you're carrying that silence right now, deal with the silence, with real people near you who can look you in the eye across a table and not a screen, before it goes looking for something to fill itself with. And remember what he told you, because he paid for it. Family obligation over there is real. And that's exactly what makes it so hard to read. Some of it is love. Some of it is the hustle. Usually it's both, tangled up so tight you'll never fully separate them. So you don't try to outthink it in the moment. You set your limit before you go, in the cold light, and you hold it. Look after yourselves. Look after the lonely blokes you know. Give one of them a call this week. I mean it. And we'll see you next time, here on Inside the Philippines.